Nelson Mandela was incarcerated for 27 years at different correctional facilities in South Africa for opposing the country's apartheid system. He was kept under terrible conditions, suffering from different illnesses like tuberculosis, which eventually killed him sometime in the latter part of the 1980s. News coverage of his death showed his wife giving a heartfelt speech at his funeral. The only thing wrong with this account is that it is not entirely true. Mandela did spend 27 years in prison, and he was treated for different illnesses, including tuberculosis. But he did not die in the 1980s. No, indeed. He was released in 1990 and went on to be the country's first democratically elected president. He died in 2013 at the ripe old age of 95. But self-proclaimed paranormal consultant Fiona Broom believes Mandela actually died in prison in the 1980s. And she is not alone. Several other people share this belief with her. At the 2010 Dragon Con, she dubbed the term the Mandela effect. She describes this phenomenon as a situation where many people share the same memory of an event that did not happen, or that happened in a different way, because at the time when that memory was formed, they existed in a parallel universe or alternate reality. So, the people who believe Nelson Mandela died in prison are not actually wrong or lying. While watching television at some point, they must have slipped into an alternate reality where news of Mandela's death in prison was being reported. Broom later created a website detailing her recollection of Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, which made the Mandela effect to become viral online. Naturally, scientists have rejected this explanation. Though it draws on real theories of physics like the string theory, there is no proven evidence that alternate realities exist. They dismiss the Mandela effect as mere false memories or confabulation based on the fact that the human memory is not always 100% reliable. In fact, the brain can sometimes manipulate memories so convincingly that it becomes difficult to separate them from the truth. But proponents of the Mandela effect argue that the sheer number of people who believe the same false memory simply cannot be dismissed as coincidence, saying that the memories are true, but reality has been altered. A common example of the Mandela effect is a scene from the James Bond movie Moonraker, where the main character Jaws and his love interest Dolly have an emotional moment. The way many people remember it, Jaws smiles and exposes his metal teeth, and Dolly smiles back, showing her braces. But she never wore braces throughout the movie. However, many fan sites and even a BBC report describes Dolly as a girl in pigtails, glasses, and braces. One review of the movie published on the day it was released in US theaters said about Jaws and Dolly's relationship, "It would have been a relationship made in heaven if only she wore braces." This is probably the origin of the misconception that has now spanned over decades. Darth Vader's line from the 1980 film Star Wars Episode V: The Empire Strikes Back. Many people recall that Darth Vader said, "Luke,
I am your father."
when he actually said,
"No, I am your father."
The popular animated children's series The Berenstain Bears is another common example. Most people recall the bear's family name as Berenstein, spelled Stein, after the authors. Meanwhile, both the book and the authors were named Berenstain, spelled Stain. Even one of the authors acknowledged that people have always confused the name, especially one elementary school teacher who did not believe Berenstain was a real name, and instead called him Berenstein. The son of one of the authors in an interview said barely anyone pronounced it correctly while he was growing up. They always called him Berenstein or Berenstein. There is also the fact that the cartoon used ambiguous pronunciations that could have been misinterpreted as Berenstein. Some 80s and 90s kids believe they watched a movie titled Shazam when it was released in 1994, where stand-up comedian Sinbad plays a genie. Except, Sinbad never made such a movie. He did host a movie marathon on TV in 1994, where he dressed up as a pirate, and that could be easily confused for a genie. Sinbad has starred in various shows and movies where he is dressed in costumes that could be mistaken for that of a genie. An example is the 1996 movie titled Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal as a genie. O'Neal and Sinbad starred in the 1997 movie Good Burger, and it is likely that people somehow confused the both of them, leading them to remember the non-existent Shazam. Then, there is also the animated series Shazam, and the fact that the name Sinbad is easily associated with genies due to the story of Sinbad the Sailor. All these situations could easily be conflated and interpreted as evidence that Sinbad starred in a Shazam movie. Remember the Hollywood classic Casablanca? Many people recall Humphrey Bogart's character Rick saying, "Play it again, Sam." But in reality, it was Ingrid Bergman's character Elsa who made such a statement, and she said, "Play it, Sam." Similarly, many people remember the Monopoly Man wearing a monocle and having a cane. But he does not wear a monocle, and he never has. The animation movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs contains the popular scene where the evil stepmother says, "Magic mirror on the wall," which is often recalled as "Mirror, mirror on the wall." But this particular example makes sense, given the fact that the book from which the movie was adapted used the phrase "mirror, mirror on the wall." Another popular manifestation of the Mandela effect is with the Mona Lisa painting. Somehow, many people believe Mona Lisa was smiling, but she was not. The television show Sex and the City was not Sex and the City, like tons of people believe, and the Looney Tunes cartoon had tunes spelled with a U, as opposed to tunes spelled with two O's. People also mistake the peanut butter brand Jif as Jiffy, maybe because of another peanut butter brand named Skippy. How is it possible that thousands of people who have never met come to believe in the same fallacy, while other people believe a different set of truths? Proponents of the Mandela effect argue that these false memories are actually real memories from a different timeline. Other people believe it is all just the work of time travelers, tweaking for monetary gains, or something called quantum computing. The web company Gaia once wrote, "As quantum computers interact with the various states of the atomic and subatomic particles within their spheres, they affect other particles within the realities of different dimensions." But that is just tech jargon that nobody understands. Another theory proposes that it is all just a conspiracy by the European Council for Nuclear Research, CERN. They claim that the organization is using their Large Hadron Collider, located in Geneva, Switzerland, to deliberately manipulate black holes. CERN's Large Hadron Collider is the most powerful particle accelerator in the world. In 2013, it discovered the Higgs boson, a fundamental force-carrying particle in the Higgs field that grants other particles their mass. Proponents of this theory believe CERN uses this Large Hadron Collider to create space-time loops as part of their secret projects, and that these space-time loops are the reasons why the Mandela effect exists. As crazy as this sounds, it is such a widespread theory that some people have renamed the Mandela effect as the CERN Mandela effect. But all these theories about CERN and space-time shifting are just based on popular assumptions that have no scientific standing. So, if the theories proposed by Fiona Broome and co. are wrong, what then is happening to our memories? The fact is, memory is very subjective. It is not always precise, and it can change over time. Other people's opinions and memories can also influence what a person remembers. Scientists have often pointed to several established theories that debunk the idea that there are infinite possible realities. Confabulation, for example, describes false memories spontaneously created by the brain to compensate for gaps in a person's memories. It is a common symptom of neurological conditions that affect the memory, such as Alzheimer's disease. Another theory proposed by psychology experts is priming. It is a phenomenon that occurs when direct exposure to stimulus affects a person's reaction to subsequent similar situations. So for example, when you read or hear a word like water, it gets a certain reaction from you. and you are likely to have that same reaction towards like ocean or liquid. Similarly, hearing a question like, "Did you see the blue bag in the room?" instead of, "Did you see anything in the room?" is more likely to make your brain try to remember a blue bag, even if you did not actually see a blue bag. Above all this is the fact that we live in a highly interconnected world where people living thousands of miles apart can have the same experiences on the internet. One website, video, or caption is all it takes for a false memory to become shared by millions of people all over the world. And when a false idea becomes repeated often enough, the brain reconstructs the memory to adapt that new reality. So, a piece of fake news that has become repeatedly reported by many supposedly reliable news sources can be the explanation of why the Mandela effect is so widespread. During the time of Nelson Mandela's incarceration, several others like him who were fighting for the same cause were also in prison. Some of them died, like Steve Biko, who died in prison in 1977. There were many rallies and protests held in support of the anti-apartheid movement, and Mandela's wife was often on screen giving speeches. It is possible for some people to have mistaken all this information as evidence that Mandela died in prison. Does this mean that the Mandela effect does not exist? If it exists, could there be more alternate timelines right now where Mandela is still alive? Is anything even real in all of these timelines?